Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to Best Albums by Year 1972. So this is a series that's going to look back at the best 50 albums from the last 50 years. This episode focusing on 1972. But before we get started, if you are new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with Best Albums by Year 1972. So, in full disclosure, I wasn't born until 1976, so I am coming at this from after the fact. And for those of you that grew up in 1972, I'm sure that you'll have differences of opinion, as certain albums probably influenced you more growing up with them in the first go-round, whereas I came at them after the fact, all having been released and so forth, but I love the albums all the same. So in order to get started here, I want to set the context a bit, the mood for this, and run through a little bit of history on it, set the context of what the year was. So Richard Nixon is still president at the time. Arab terrorists killed 11 people at the Olympic Games that year. Mariner 9 becomes the first space probe to orbit another planet and sends back photos of Mars. Vinyl records are granted a U.S. federal copyright protection for the very first time. The Godfather is released into theaters. The Watergate Hotel break-in took place, and of course later on that brings down the president. The last U.S. ground troops are removed from Vietnam. First episode of The Price is Right airs. Women are finally allowed to compete for the first time in the Boston Marathon. HBO is launched. I mean, think of how that has affected all of our lives today, especially in the streaming world. And this one here is really cool for me. The Apollo program ends with astronaut Eugene Cernan being the last man to walk on the moon, and at this point, still the last man to have walked on the moon. So hopefully, of course, we will have the Artemis program returning people to the moon, but at this point, he is the last man. That took place in 1972. So I've got some runner-up albums here to go through with you, 5 of them in fact, and no slight to any of these. I love all these albums, and that's why they're in my runner-up list, but just didn't become the one that I selected ultimately. So first one up here, we've got the Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street. This one here being really a double album at the time, of course, all fitting, the 18 tracks now on it all fit within one CD disc, so it appears as though a single album, but it's got the classics that are on it, just not quite as great in my opinion as some of their later era stuff. I've mentioned this in the first episode of 1971. I will only be picking the band once and one of their albums throughout the 50 years that we are going through, so some of these you might find surprising. I am not selecting it because there is a later album that I am choosing to go with. Another one up here, really amazing, and certainly tying into the shirt that I'm wearing here, David Bowie, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. Fantastic album, certainly a career-defining one for him and one of the greatest ones at that. Another great album and career-defining one at that, Neil Young, Harvest. First real acoustic affair album that he did, and of course having the big hit Heart of Gold on this one here, and really changed everything for him going forward, although he wouldn't follow this album up with another one that sounded like it, always constantly reinventing himself, something we love today about Neil Young, but at the time that was a shock, I know. And another great album from 1972, Black Sabbath Volume 4. With the opening cut, Wheels of Confusion on this one, the ballad changes, Supernaut, Snowblind, Cornucopia. So many good tracks on that one, and it's one of their best, if not my favorite, by Black Sabbath, of that era at least. But yeah, great album. And then here's the one that I talked about when I was selecting 1971's winner. I chose not to go with Deep Purple, Machine Head, albeit it is great, and of course with Smoke on the Water and Highway Star, Maybe I'm a Leo, Pictures at Home, all of those so good. But the album itself that I did choose to go with as the best album of 1972 goes to, yes, Close to the Edge. fifth studio album by these guys. My favorite of the, the original famous era, let's call it, of Yes, because I know there's been so many different lineups and so forth, but of the 1970s era where they were at the height of their peak commercial and creativity and so forth, always been my favorite album of them. Last album to feature drummer Bill Bruford on it until 1991 when he took part in the Union album, which happens to be one of my favorite Yes albums as well, although I know it's much maligned among the band members and a lot of fans as well. He found this album too laborious, and that is one of the reasons he chose to leave, all because this album here, really, it's making a shift for the band. Title track of this, Close to the Edge, was 18 minutes long, filled up the entire first side of the album, and the album itself only has 3 tracks. Side 2 has the other 2 tracks, And You and I and Siberian Khatru on it. But it became the band's biggest and greatest commercial success at the time. So despite those long tracks and everything that are on it, it really did well for them. And it's just one of those ones that, for me, introduced me into the prog world and showed me that 18-minute long songs could not be boring, could be very, very interesting, hold my interest all the way throughout and so forth, and just really changed my opinion of all of that. So, all right, so other versions of this album that have come out over the years and whatnot. In 1987, it was first issued on CD, which is what this version is here, just containing the original 3 tracks broken down into the different parts of those tracks. So it looks like more, but it is just the 3 tracks. I'm sure this is a later pressing of it, not from 1987, because it's got a nice booklet and everything in it. But 2003, they did reissue it, expanded and remastered at the same time, but it also included 4 bonus tracks on it. So I don't have that version. I do need to track that one down eventually. In 2013, though, it was remixed by the great Steve Wilson, and so I've got that. So far, the physical pressings of these have only come out in Japan. So I've got one of those here, and one of the things I like about this is the different album artwork. So you've got the original here, and you've got the reissue version of it here. So kind of cool there. This is a gatefold when it's opened up, so pretty cool in and of itself for that as well. But if you like any of those remixes that Steve Wilson has been doing, this one here, I think he did the best on the Yes albums in particular, so definitely check that out. And in 2015, they played the album live in its entirety, released it as part of the Like It Is double album here featuring John Davison on vocals. He's the current vocalist with the band. So you're not hearing John Anderson sing it, the original vocalist, but you are getting a very, very good rendition of it. Definitely worth checking out there. All right, and so there you go. That is the best album of 1972, at least in my opinion. Don't forget to check the description for links to related videos. And if you've enjoyed this, certainly please share it out on social media. Help spread the word that way. And certainly keep an eye out. We will be back with 1973 next. All right, everyone, have a great day, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Bye-bye.